these other numbers. And again, forgive me for like killing Hamlet in the first act here. But, let's cut law enforcement. That's 1% of the budget. Let's cut sciences and medical research. We spend too much on that, they may be saying. 1% of the budget. Ag, 1% of the budget. Transportation, those pork barrel projects, it's going to bankrupt us. It's only 2% of the budget. Again, I will actually let you explain this far better than I am right now. But this is a scam unless they're going to slash Social Security and Medicare and and Veterans Affairs. They're never going to get to $2 trillion, so they need to just stop pretending.
You know, Joe, I feel like Vanna White. I'm just turning letters up here, and you're actually Pat Sajak telling people how it is.
It makes me so mad. It's so disingenuous.
I'm happy to be your letter guy. But you said it.
As you saw from the intro, Joe Scarborough is coming after DOGE, calling it a scam, saying that there's no possible way that they can meet their $2 trillion goal that they have by 2026, where DOGE is set to dissolve in, I believe, Independence Day of 2026. And I just had a couple, things that he mentioned in the video that I think he was just being disingenuous, strawman arguments. He only focused on as if other things weren't touchable on the budget. For instance, education. We spend more on education than we do on the Pentagon. I'm just making an argument here. So since we spend more money on on education than the Pentagon, which is like what, I forgot how much, but it's like 400 and something billion dollars for education, and we have less and less results. You can't point to me one metric where we have improved positively with our education. How you spend more money on education, yet your education is less effective throughout the years? That don't make any sense to me. Shouldn't that be efficient? Shouldn't we make that more efficient? And it seems like George Scarborough and many leftists don't understand the definition of efficient. Efficient means using time, resources, and energy in a way that is effective and minimizes waste. Do you think there's evidence to suggest that we have wasteful spending in education, where the more money we spend in education, the less effective education becomes? Before the Department of Education was created, I know people who see my channel is going to say, Kenny, you're repeating this talking point again. We know before the Department of Education was created, the USA had the #1 education system in the world. Let's get back to that. How can you justify the existence of a department where education got worse after it was created historically? Make it make sense. But this is the government. This is the government that leftists try to defend. They pretend there's a problem, right? Military for about $450 billion as well. Right there, that's almost $900 billion. There's wasteful healthcare spending in the United States of America, according to the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. Wasteful healthcare spending can reach up to $935 billion a year. Types of wasteful healthcare spending in the billions of dollars. This is according to the Journal of American Medical Association. Waste in the U.S. healthcare system estimates. Operational waste, pricing failures, $241 billion. Inefficient spending, $116 billion. Failures of care coordination, $78 billion. Low value care, $101 billion. Administrative complexity, administrative waste, $266 billion. Fraud and abuse, $84 billion. You don't think DOGE can make that process more effective? And guess what? I didn't even mention Social Security. I didn't even touch Social Security. And based on my estimation, we can possibly cut, based on healthcare, the military, who we know both of them failed. The Department of Education failed multiple audits. The military failed its 7th audit, I believe. Healthcare spending, that's about $1.8 trillion, if my calculations are correct. About $1.8 trillion. So all they need to do is find $2 billion to cut. Now, let's focus on all the other stuff that Joe Scarborough wanted to focus on. You don't think we can find $2 billion to be more efficient? How about cutting the federal employees who only 6% of them work in the office? How about we cut their budget? I bet that'll save us some money too. But Joe Scarborough sitting here pretending that DOGE is a scam. This is not true. Here's Ron Paul rebuking or kind of debating his stance. Let's take a look.
I want to play this from Joe Scarborough today, because this is the mentality that you're going to hear, I think, from a lot of members who are very reliant on the spending, the lobbyists, the pharmaceutical companies, the people who give them a lot of money for their campaigns. Watch this.
The United States government has already spent 80% of its budget on Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, vets, defense, and interest on the debt. This is a scam unless they're going to slash Social Security and Medicare and and Veterans Affairs. They're never going to get to $2 trillion.
Can't be done. Can't be done, Senator. What do you say?
Oh, poor Joe Scarborough. I remember when he was a conservative. You know, when he was a conservative Republican, he actually voted against expanding Medicare into Medicare Part D, this extra part to make Medicare bigger because he thought it might bankrupt the country. Yep. So there was a time when he actually was a thoughtful person, but no longer. Now, there is a sliver of a truth in the sense that, yes, entitlements are a lot of the spending, but to say entitlements are a lot of the spending, therefore we're not going to look at waste, is the excuse we hear all the time. Oh, we're not going to look at this spending because if you get rid of all waste, it won't balance the budget. Well, why don't we start by getting rid of the $750,000 that was spent feeding cocaine to Japanese quail to see if they were more sexually promiscuous on cocaine. Maybe Joe would agree with getting at least that, get rid of that.
Unbelievable. Yeah, and the idea that these programs can't have a little bit of analysis, you know, where you find some waste in them. If every agency had the responsibility to say, okay, you know, show us what you have. Show us what you can get rid of that isn't going to, you know, cut to the bone and people will still get the benefits that were promised to them. Show us where there's fraud and find some ways to save some money.
Isn't it so funny how the left always pretends that they're so idealistic, right? If Elon Musk, this is what efficiency means, right? Can we spend less money and get the same outcomes that we have today? So even if let's say we did touch Social Security and Medicare and all this other stuff, what if we can give you the same outcome that you're getting now, but it takes less money to produce that outcome? Wouldn't that be a good deal for the American taxpayer? I think so. And I think a lot of American taxpayers are starting to realize that. Vivek says DOGE will delete entire government agencies. Because, like, imagine if only 6%, sorry guys if I'm all over the place, if only 6% of the federal workers come into office full time, some aren't working at all, audits found. So if an audit discovers that, hey, only 6% of federal employees actually work, wouldn't that justify Vivek's stance here of deleting entire agencies? A common sense individual will say yes. But Joe Scarborough says it's a scam. How about the guy that was on Joe Scarborough out here prancing around? Here's his claim. Trump's DOGE has fostered the idea that federal salaries are exorbitant, but private workers earn 8% more money than civil servant counterparts. I don't care how much money I earn compared to my federal counterpart. Right? We spent, let me joke around and say this is a $1.5 billion. We spent $1.2 billion on the federal, for these federal employees to only show up 6% of the time in the office. So when Vivek says, oh, we can use your Social Security number and just cut half of you guys off, that's $600 million we save right there. And let's look at the comment section and see if you agree with what people on X are saying. Private sector employees are paid by private citizens because they provide a service or an outcome for these private citizens, an equivalent exchange. Okay. Government employees are paid from the pockets of taxpayers. This isn't hard, Steve. This isn't hard, Steve. It isn't. I got to repost that. It isn't hard. If you add zero value, your pension should be 100% lowered. Glad I can help. Nice try, but federal salaries come with guaranteed benefits, pensions, and job security most private sector workers can only dream of. Let's stop pretending bureaucrats are underpaid victims. Who cares if the salaries are equivalent? What matters if they're paying 2,500 employees in the government when they can get the job done with 250 in private sectors? If you don't believe me, look at NASA versus SpaceX. Federal salaries have been taken from the paychecks of private sector workers first. It's weird that someone has to explain this to you. Perfect. They can make more money in the private sector. Pretty much, you made the argument for why we should fire federal employees, at least downsize the government. And many conservatives agree with this, right? But the left, because end of the day, the left isn't about solutions. And I keep standing on this point. People who push for big government, they're not for solutions. And Thomas Sowell really exemplifies this quote for me, right? This is an excerpt from his book, The Anointed. They create a crisis to justify, oh, we got an education crisis. Their solution, the Department of Education, right? I'm using the Department of Education as an example. The results, we have a worse educational outcome before the Department of Education was created. The response when you find out that the Department of Education is not actually working, oh, education would have been a lot worse without the Department of Education. You see how wasteful spending gets justified in the government? Indeed, it is not often asserted that things would have been worse or even worse if it was not for the wonderful programs that mitigated the inevitable damage from other factors. This is the game of pretend that many people, many Democrats specifically, use to justify wasteful government spending. And all we're saying is, hey, this department is going to come in, make the government more efficient. But the left hates that word. They hate that because, at the end of the day, it compromises their control. Because, at the end of the day, government has an inverse incentive structure. Their incentive structure is to justify control. And this is how they justify control. They use this to enrich their buddies, enrich themselves, guarantee jobs. You just heard the private sectors. You just heard the American citizens on X complain about how federal workers got guaranteed benefits. They got a pension. Safe jobs. No matter how bad or good the economy is, they're guaranteed to have a job. But private sector employees like myself and other people watching this video, if a recession happened, we're scared about losing our jobs. I'm just saying. And they all get paid off the piggyback of us. So we take all the, how can lindo, as my wife will say. How cute. Private sector workers take all the risk. And out of our portion, out of our paycheck, you pay government employees. And you don't think that we should be slashing the government? Here's Mike Johnson talking about the government being too big and how he welcomes the idea of DOGE. Let's take a look.
Well, this is an important day. It's the beginning of a journey. You've heard what DOGE is all about, the Department of Government Efficiency. It's a new thing, and this is a new day in Washington and a new day in America. We have long lamented the size and scope of the government, that it has grown too large. And let me be frank about this. Government is too big, it does too many things, and it does almost nothing well. And the taxpayers deserve better. They deserve
Imagine calling that a scam. Imagine calling that sentiment a scam. DOGE, if I had to put it in 3 words, more with less. Let's do more with less. That's what government efficiency is really about. If it's justified to keep that regulation or that agency, let's see if we can have the same outcome with less resources to save some money here. Because government is rewarded every time it makes mistakes. Department of Education is not being effective. We need to put more money into education. And then the outcomes get worse. We need to put more. We didn't put enough money into education. That's why our educational outcome is falling behind other countries. And at some point, someone like Elon Musk would come in, or I would come in and be like, throwing more money in at the problem is not solving the problem. Obviously, it's a process issue. It's how we're using these resources is what's causing the problem. It's what's causing the negative outcome. But the government don't get rewarded for being efficient. It gets rewarded for being wasteful. This is the incentive structure that we have to fix. This is why I said I'm a proponent of some type of accountability bill, where if you fail your audit, right, if you get judged on certain metrics, and if you're not meeting those metrics, your whole department could be on the chopping block. Some accountability. Imagine the Pentagon lost what? $2 billion? They didn't know where it went. The Department of Education failed their audits as well. They're spending money on transgenderism in New York public schools. Make it make sense. There should be some penalties for that. Hey, how is this spending attributing to improve educational outcomes for our American students? You can't justify it. You shouldn't do it no more. You should lose funding. There needs to be some accountability structure. And this is the things government hate. They hate to be judged. You do nothing well, yet you're sitting here trying to justify that we should keep the Department of Education. Make it make sense, leftists? Y'all quick to agree with us with the Pentagon, the military, when the Department of Education is literally doing the same thing as the military, the Pentagon. They failed their 7th audit. Department of Education failed their audit too. But I'm not looking at Department of Education. And we spend more money on the Department of Education than we do on the Pentagon. Yet there's no metric you can point to justify the level of spending that we invested in the Department of Education. See, government is not rewarded to making responsible choices, and it's time to create a different incentive structure in government, and that's what DOGE represents.
A more responsive government, a more efficient government, one that is leaner and more focused on its primary objectives. And that's the opportunity that we have here now. We believe it's an historic moment for the country, and these two gentlemen are going to help navigate through this exciting new day. Elon and Vivek don't need much of an introduction here in Congress for certain, and most of the American people know what they're capable of and what they've achieved. Both of these gentlemen have run very successful organizations. They're innovators, and they're forward thinkers. And so that's what we need right now. And so what you're going to have today is first is a meeting that we'll have here with decision makers, key figures in the Republican House and Senate who are chairs of committees of jurisdiction who deal with the money and financing of government and the structure of government. We'll have chairs of the new DOGE caucuses that have been set up in the Senate and the House. And then after that, we'll proceed to the Congressional Auditorium where all of the Senate Republicans and House Republicans have been invited, and I think many of them will gather for this discussion. So there won't be a lot of detail for the press today, and that's by design, because this is a brainstorming session. It is the first, again, as I said, of a...
This is what scares the left. Because at the end of the day, the government, I already told you, is like a mechanism for control for the left. Right? Because at the end of the day, government always tries to justify its own control. But the only way you can justify controlling something is if you're giving a positive outcome for the American people. And so far, wasteful medical care spending, Obamacare. Oh, why Obamacare so bad? Obamacare made all insurances more expensive because of the wasteful healthcare expenses that's happened. Do I need to put the chart up again? I think I need to put up the chart again. We have wasteful healthcare expenses. Obamacare contributed to that. And all we're saying is let's make it more efficient, right? Look at all the wasteful healthcare spending. Failure to deliver care, operational waste, administrative complexity. Obamacare added to that, especially on the administrative complexity part. And that cost got trickled down to other insurance providers. It affected the private insurance providers. This is why people don't like Obamacare. This is why people are in favor of, hey, maybe we need to restructure it somehow. Let's try to make Obamacare better. That's what Trump was trying to do. But Trump didn't get the support. Trump didn't have the minds to help him do it. But now he does. And the left is trying to push back and said this is a bad idea. Only a MSNBC viewer would believe that. But any common sense individual, anyone in the middle, any non-Democrat can see, actually some Democrats can even see that this is a good idea. How about we try to do less with more? The government could be more efficient, especially when we got $36 trillion and what we got to show for it. We are $36 trillion in debt, and what does Americans have to show for it? Look at the obesity rate we got going on. Look at the educational outcomes that we got going on. We got students out here in certain districts, Chicago, Democrat cities, that can't even read. Yet we're investing more money in the Department of Education than we are to the Pentagon and the military. Yet we don't have any results to justify that spending. And you think it's a bad idea to be more efficient with our resources? Make it make sense. But hey, I don't expect them to. Because at the end of the day, we all know this is a game for them to justify big government, because they see big government as a means to control society, culture, industry, and the country. Let's just be honest. But I digress. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you agree with Joe Scarborough that DOGE is a scam? Or do you agree with me and some of the sentiments that many Americans are feeling that the government is just too wasteful with our resources because they face no accountability, they face no penalty when they are wrong? I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate you guys watching to the end of the video. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.